The massive station called Harmony Point floated in the darkness of space between the stars. It was built to be neutral ground, where different species could meet without fear. Today, 12 alien races had gathered in its main hall to deliver what they believed would be humanity's death sentence. Captain Jake Miller walked slowly down the long corridor toward the meeting chamber. His black uniform bore no decorations except for small earth patches on each shoulder. Behind him walked Lisa Warren, a woman in her 40s who had spent 20 years dealing with aliens as a diplomat. Next to her was Colonel Ben Carter, whose job was to advise on military matters. The three humans looked calm, but inside they knew this meeting would change everything. For months, the alien coalition had been making demands. They wanted humans to leave all their colony worlds and return to Earth. They said humans were spreading too fast across the galaxy and needed to be stopped. Jake paused at the chamber doors. "Remember," he said quietly to his companions, "just stick to the plan." Lisa nodded. "They think they have us cornered." "Let them think that," Ben replied with a slight smile. The doors opened with a soft hiss. The chamber was huge, with a domed ceiling that showed the stars outside. Representatives from 12 species sat around a curved table. At the center sat Admiral Kethvar of the Zephyrian Empire. His blue skin seemed to glow under the lights, and his four eyes looked down at the humans with obvious disgust. Next to him sat General Mortak of the Corvan Republic. The warrior race looked like giant lizards with armor-like skin. His red eyes burned with hatred as he watched the humans enter. The other species around the table represented billions of beings across the galaxy, all united in their fear and hatred of humanity. Jake and his team took their seats at a smaller table facing the aliens. The chamber fell silent except for the soft humming of the station's life support systems. Admiral Kethvar stood up slowly. His voice was deep and commanding when he spoke. "Humans of Earth, you have been brought here to hear the final judgment of the Galactic Coalition. Your species has violated the natural order by spreading beyond your home system without permission." A holographic display appeared above the table, showing human colony worlds scattered across local space. Red markers indicated coalition fleets surrounding each one. "You have 47 colonies," Kethvar continued. "Our combined fleets number over 30,000 ships. Your entire military force is perhaps 3,000 vessels scattered and weak." General Mortak stood next, his clawed hands gripping the table edge. "The coalition offers you one choice. Return to your home system within 30 days. Abandon all colonies. Accept permanent quarantine to Earth and its immediate space. If you refuse," added Ambassador Veltar of the Nexari, her insect-like features clicking as she spoke, "we will destroy every human settlement beyond Sol. Your choice is submission or extinction." The other aliens nodded agreement. Some looked pleased at the thought of human destruction. Others seemed almost sad, as if they regretted what they saw as necessary action against a dangerous species. Jake Miller listened without expression. He occasionally glanced at his notes or whispered something to Lisa or Ben. The aliens took this as fear or desperate planning. They had no idea what was really happening. When the aliens finished their presentation, the chamber fell silent again. Everyone waited for the human response. Many aliens expected immediate surrender. Others hoped for it, not wanting the burden of genocide on their consciences. Jake stood slowly. He was not tall compared to most of the aliens, but something in his manner made them pay attention. He looked around the table, meeting each alien's eyes. "Thank you for your offer," he said in a calm voice. "We have considered your terms carefully." The aliens leaned forward. This was it, the moment when humanity would bow to superior force and accept their place as prisoners on their own world. "We decline," Jake said simply. The chamber erupted. Several aliens stood up, talking loudly in their own languages. Admiral Kethvar slammed his hand on the table, making it shake. "You cannot be serious," he shouted. "Do you not understand the numbers? We have 10 times your military strength." Jake remained standing calmly. "We understand your position perfectly." Lisa Warren stood next to him. "We'll be returning to our space now," she said politely. "You have 48 hours to reconsider your position." "Reconsider?" General Mortak's voice was a growl. "You are the ones who should reconsider. You face annihilation." Colonel Ben Carter finally stood, his hand resting casually on his uniform belt. "Gentlemen, ladies," he said, nodding to the various aliens, "it's been educational." The three humans began walking toward the exit. The aliens sat in shocked silence for a moment, then several began shouting again. "You will all die," screamed the representative from the Altarian collective. "Every human world will burn. Your children will curse your memory," added another. Jake stopped at the chamber doors and turned back. The aliens fell silent, waiting for his final words. Perhaps now the human would show proper fear. Perhaps he would beg for more time or try to negotiate. Instead, Jake Miller smiled. It was not a happy smile or a friendly one. It was the kind of smile a person might wear when they knew something others did not. "Ambassador Veltar asked if we understand your position," he said. "We do. The question is whether you understand ours." He paused, letting his eyes sweep across the assembled aliens one more time. "You're welcome to try," he said simply. Then the three humans walked out, leaving the most powerful beings in the galaxy, staring at empty doorway. Admiral Kethvar was the first to break the silence. They must be insane. No species would choose suicide over submission. Unless, Ambassador Veltar said slowly, they know something we do not. "Impossible," General Mortak growled. "We have watched them for decades. Their military is primitive. Their strategy is defensive at best." But as the aliens continued their discussion, none of them noticed the small device Colonel Ben Carter had placed under the table during the meeting. It was recording everything they said and transmitting it to human intelligence services. The peace talks had indeed failed, but not in the way anyone expected. The aliens thought they had just witnessed human stupidity and desperation. They had no idea they had just declared war on the most dangerous species in the galaxy. In 48 hours, they would begin to learn the difference. The news of the failed peace talks spread across human space like wildfire. On Colony World New Denver, Governor Helen Scott stood in her office looking out at the city below. The streets were busy with people going about their daily lives, unaware that war was coming. Her assistant knocked and entered. "Governor, we just received the signal from Captain Miller." Helen nodded. "Begin Phase 1 evacuation. All non-essential personnel and children first. How long do we have?" "Intelligence estimates the coalition fleets will reach us in 6 days." Helen smiled grimly. "More than enough time." She pressed a button on her desk. "Colonel Torres, please report to my office." Within minutes, Colonel Frank Torres arrived. He was a big man with gray hair and calm eyes that had seen too much war. "You called, Governor?" "The talks failed as expected." "Begin revealing the defensive positions." Frank nodded. "It'll be good to stop pretending we're just farmers and shopkeepers." Across the colony world, hidden doors began opening. What looked like hills and rock formations split apart to reveal massive gun batteries. Storage buildings that seemed to hold grain and supplies opened to show military equipment. Even the school playground slid away to uncover a missile launcher. The colonists moved with practiced efficiency. Men and women who had spent months pretending to be teachers, farmers, and merchants quickly changed into military uniforms. Children were loaded onto transports that would take them to hidden bunkers deep underground. Meanwhile, on Earth, President Karen Walsh walked quickly through the corridors of the Pentagon. The most powerful military leaders in human space were waiting for her in a secure conference room. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said as she entered, "we are now at war." General Adam Pierce, head of Human Defense Command, stood first. He was an older man who had been planning this moment for 20 years. "Madam President, all our forces are ready. The Prometheus protocol is active. Tell me again why this will work," President Walsh said, taking her seat. Admiral Grace Thompson stepped forward. She was one of the youngest admirals in human history, promoted because of her brilliant tactical mind. The aliens think in terms of traditional warfare. Big fleets, direct confrontation, honorable combat. They expect us to meet them ship to ship. She activated a holographic display showing human space. Instead of the scattered, weak colonies the aliens expected to see, the display showed something very different. Every human world was connected by hidden supply lines and communication networks. Each colony was surrounded by concealed weapons platforms and defensive systems. "Our colonies weren't built for farming or mining," Grace continued. "They were built as fortress worlds. Every single human settlement is a military base disguised as a civilian target." Dr. Marcus Bell, head of Human Research Division, spoke next. "While the aliens have been building bigger ships and more powerful weapons, we've been building smarter ones." He showed them images of human ships that looked small and weak compared to alien vessels. Our ships aren't designed for glorious fleet battles. They're designed to hurt the enemy and survive. Stealth technology, hit-and-run tactics, psychological warfare. What about their numerical advantage? President Walsh asked. Numbers don't matter if you can't hit your target, Admiral Thompson replied. Our stealth ships can strike and disappear before the enemy knows what hit them. Our automated hunters can attack supply lines while our main fleets are somewhere else entirely. Dr. Bell activated another display. We've also developed weapons specifically designed to target alien biology. The Zephyrians have a weakness in their neural pathways that we can exploit with sonic weapons. The Corvin's armor-like skin becomes brittle when exposed to certain chemicals. President Walsh looked shocked. You've been developing biological weapons? We've been preparing to defend our species, General Pierce said firmly. These aliens have made it clear they want us extinct. We're simply using every advantage we can. There's more, Dr. Bell continued. For the past 30 years, our diplomats, traders, and researchers have been studying alien cultures. We know their fears, their weaknesses, their military tactics. We've been preparing for this war since the day we met them. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity hadn't been naively expanding into space. They had been setting a trap. The aliens see our expansion as aggressive, Admiral Thompson explained. But every colony we built was placed to create a defensive network. When they attack, they'll be walking into a web designed to capture and destroy them. Colonel Janet Wright, head of Special Operations, spoke for the first time. We also have assets inside their territory. Humans who have been living among alien populations for years, mapping their societies, learning their secrets. Sleeper agents? President Walsh asked. Deep cover specialists, Janet corrected. They've been preparing for this moment just like everyone else. General Pierce pulled up a tactical display showing the expected alien attack routes. The Coalition thinks they're attacking weak, scattered colonies. Instead, they're about to assault the most heavily defended positions in this galaxy. What about civilian casualties? President Walsh asked. Every human colony has been evacuated except for military personnel, Admiral Thompson replied. The aliens will be fighting soldiers, not families. Dr. Bell showed them more weapon designs. We've also prepared psychological warfare tools. The aliens have never faced an enemy that studies their cultures and uses that knowledge against them. President Walsh looked around the room at her military leaders. These men and women had spent decades preparing for a war they hoped would never come. But now that it was here, they seemed almost eager to begin. Are we really ready for this? She asked. Madam President, General Pierce said solemnly, humanity has been ready for this war since the day we realized the galaxy didn't want us in it. Admiral Thompson added, the aliens think they're about to destroy a weak, primitive species. They have no idea what's waiting for them. They asked for our surrender, Colonel Wright said with a cold smile. Instead, they're going to get a lesson in why you should never threaten the human race. President Walsh stood up. Very well. Give the order. All human forces are authorized to engage the enemy with extreme prejudice. As the military leaders filed out to begin the war, Dr. Bell remained behind. There's one more thing, Madam President, he said quietly. The aliens don't know that we intercepted their communications years ago. We know exactly when and where they plan to attack, which means we'll be waiting for them. Across human space, the trap was being set. The aliens thought they were hunting helpless prey. They were about to discover they had walked into the lair of apex predators. Fleet Admiral Zarkoth of the Zephyrian Empire stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking at the tactical display with satisfaction. 8,000 ships from the Coalition fleet surrounded him in perfect formation. This was the largest military force assembled in galactic history, all aimed at destroying one primitive species. Target confirmed, reported his tactical officer. The human colony world Haven's Rest lies ahead. Our sensors show minimal defenses. Zarkoth nodded. Begin the attack. Let this be a lesson to any species that dares defy the Coalition. Haven's Rest looked peaceful from space. It was a green world with blue oceans and white clouds. The few orbital platforms around it seemed small and harmless. The human settlements on the surface appeared to be simple farming communities. Commander Steve Hudson sat in what looked like a small command bunker on the planet's surface. His team of 20 soldiers seemed impossibly outnumbered against the massive alien fleet approaching them. But Steve was smiling. Sir, called his communications officer, the alien fleet is moving into attack position. Perfect, Steve replied. Wait for them to commit fully, then give the signal. Above them in space, the alien fleet moved closer. Admiral Zarkoth felt confident as his ships took their positions. The humans had maybe 50 small defense satellites around their world. His fleet could destroy them in minutes. All ships open fire, he commanded. Thousands of energy beams lanced out from the alien vessels, striking the small human defense platforms. The weapons hit their targets and exploded in bright flashes. Zarkoth smiled as he watched the destruction. Then his smile faded. "Sir," his sensor operator called out, "I'm reading massive energy signatures all around us." The space around Haven's Rest suddenly came alive. What looked like asteroids split open to reveal huge weapons platforms. The planet's moon cracked apart like an egg, showing a gigantic railgun battery inside. Even the planet's rings turned out to be disguised defense systems. "Impossible," Zarkoth whispered. "Sir, we're detecting over 300 hidden weapons platforms. Energy signatures suggest they're more powerful than anything in our databases." Before Zarkoth could respond, the hidden defenses opened fire. Streams of projectiles moving at incredible speeds tore through his formation. These weren't energy weapons that his shields could stop. These were solid metal slugs accelerated to nearly the speed of light. The first wave of kinetic projectiles punched through Coalition shields like they weren't there. Alien ships that had taken decades to build were torn apart in seconds. Explosions lit up the darkness as the carefully ordered fleet formation dissolved into chaos. "All ships evasive maneuvers," Zarkoth shouted, but it was too late for many of his vessels. That's when the human ships appeared. Captain Noah. Black led a squadron of 12 human stealth vessels as they materialized from nowhere around the confused alien fleet. His ships were smaller than the alien vessels, but they moved like hunting sharks through the confusion. "Target their command ships first," Noah ordered his pilots. "Hit them and disappear before they can respond." The human ships struck with surgical precision. They fired missiles that seemed to bend around alien defenses, hitting exactly where each ship was most vulnerable. Then they vanished again before the aliens could return fire. "Where did they go?" Zarkoth demanded, but his sensors showed empty space where the human ships had been moments before. Down on the planet's surface, the alien landing craft were having their own problems. General Carthun led 10,000 Coalition soldiers down to what should have been an easy conquest of helpless human farmers. Instead, he found a nightmare. The peaceful farming communities were gone. In their place were hidden bunkers and weapon positions that seemed to appear from nowhere. The humans weren't farmers at all. They were soldiers, and they had turned the entire planet into a weapon. Lieutenant Amy Foster crouched behind a rock formation that had been carefully shaped to provide perfect cover. Her squad of 8 humans was surrounded by hundreds of alien soldiers, but they didn't seem worried. "Remember," she whispered into her radio, "these aliens have never fought guerrilla warfare. They expect us to line up and fight them directly." "Copy that," came the replies from her scattered team members. The aliens advanced in perfect military formation, their weapons ready. They expected the humans to either surrender or meet them in open battle. Instead, the humans seemed to vanish. Amy's team used underground tunnels to move beneath the alien forces. They would pop up behind enemy lines, strike quickly, and disappear again before the aliens could react. The confused invaders found themselves shooting at shadows while human weapons fire came from unexpected directions. "Where are they?" General Carthun demanded as his forces took casualties from an enemy they couldn't see. The answer came when the ground beneath his main formation exploded upward. Hidden mines that had been placed months earlier turned his advance into a killing field. As his soldiers scattered in panic, human troops emerged from concealed positions all around them. But the worst was yet to come. Captain Rick Stone commanded a group of ships the humans called the Ghost Fleet. These vessels were designed for one purpose: to make the enemy afraid. They didn't try to win fair fights. They hunted civilian ships, supply vessels, and isolated military units. "Target acquired," Rick reported as his ships found a Coalition supply convoy traveling between star systems. 15 cargo ships with minimal escort. The human ships struck without warning. But instead of simply destroying the alien vessels, they used weapons designed to disable them. The alien crews found themselves trapped aboard dead ships, floating helplessly in space. Then Rick's ships broadcast a message to the disabled vessels: "Surrender now and we might let you live." Some alien crews chose to fight to the death rather than surrender to humans. Others gave up, hoping for mercy. Rick treated both groups the same way. He destroyed them all, but not before making sure other coalition ships received the recordings of their final moments. The message was clear. Humans didn't take prisoners, and they didn't show mercy. Back in space around Haven's Rest, Admiral Zarkoth was learning the same lesson. His massive fleet was being torn apart by an enemy that refused to fight fairly. The human ships appeared and disappeared like ghosts. The hidden weapons platforms fired continuously, turning space around the planet into a deadly maze. "Sir," his communications officer called, "we're receiving reports from across the front. All coalition fleets are under attack. The humans aren't just defending, they're hunting our forces everywhere." Zarkoth looked at his tactical display in horror. What should have been an easy victory was turning into a massacre. His 8,000 ships were being destroyed by an enemy he couldn't even see most of the time. "Order all ships to retreat," he commanded. "Sir, we still outnumber them," his tactical officer protested. "Numbers don't matter if we can't hit them," Zarkoth shouted. "Get us out of here!" But as his remaining ships tried to flee, they found that the humans had surrounded them. The retreat turned into a running battle as human vessels picked off stragglers and damaged ships. By the time the coalition fleet escaped human space, Admiral Zarkoth had lost nearly half his ships. The most powerful military force in galactic history had been defeated by a few thousand humans using tactics the aliens had never seen before. The news spread across coalition space like wildfire. The humans weren't just resisting. They were winning. And they were doing it in ways that terrified every species in the galaxy. Dr. Sarah Mitchell sat in her office deep beneath the surface of Earth, surrounded by files on every alien species in the galaxy. For 30 years, she had studied how different races thought, what they feared, and what made them break under pressure. Now it was time to use that knowledge. "Project Mirror is ready for implementation," she reported to Admiral Thompson via secure video link. "We've identified the psychological weaknesses of every coalition species." "Show me," Grace replied. Sarah pulled up holographic displays showing alien cultural patterns. "The Corvins worship honor above all else. Their entire society is based on glorious combat and heroic death. But there's a flaw in their thinking." She showed footage of Corvin warriors in traditional battle. They can't handle situations where honor becomes a trap. If we force them to choose between certain death and dishonorable retreat, their minds break down. "How do we do that?" Grace asked. "Simple. We make them watch their comrades die while they can do nothing to help." Meanwhile, Commander Dale Price was preparing his ships for the most disturbing mission of his career. His target was the Nexari Collective, a species that shared one group mind across billions of individuals. "The Nexari have never existed as individuals," he explained to his crew. "They don't even have concepts for loneliness or isolation. But our quantum scramblers can temporarily cut them off from their collective consciousness." His second-in-command looked uncomfortable. "Sir, that sounds like torture." "It is," Dale replied coldly. "But they chose war with us. Now they get to learn what it feels like to be alone." The human psychological warfare campaign began with surgical precision. Against the honor-obsessed Corvin Republic, human forces used tactics specifically designed to destroy their enemy's sense of worth. Captain Laura Davis led a strike against a Corvin military base. Instead of attacking directly, her ship surrounded the facility and began broadcasting recordings. The recordings showed Corvin soldiers screaming in terror as they died, begging for their lives instead of dying with honor. "These are your warriors," Laura's voice echoed across Corvin communication channels. "This is how they really die when they face us." The effect was devastating. Corvin soldiers who heard the broadcast became paralyzed with doubt. Their entire belief system told them that death in battle was glorious, but the recording showed only fear and pain. General Mortak himself listened to the broadcasts from his command ship. He heard voices he recognized, soldiers he had trained, crying out in terror as human weapons tore them apart. "Turn it off," he ordered, but his communications officer shook his head. "Sir, they've overridden our systems. Every ship in the fleet is receiving this signal." As the recordings continued, showing Corvin after Corvin dying in undignified ways, the proud warrior race began to crack. Some soldiers refused to fight, saying their deaths would be meaningless. Others fought with desperate fury, trying to prove the recordings wrong. The human tactics against the Nexari were even more cruel. Commander Dale Price used quantum disruption fields to isolate individual Nexari from their collective mind. For the first time in their species' history, Nexari individuals found themselves truly alone with their own thoughts. The effect was immediate and horrible. Nexari soldiers caught in the disruption fields collapsed, screaming in languages that had no words for individual terror. They had never learned to function as separate beings. "Please," one isolated Nexari begged over an open channel, "let me hear my brothers again. I cannot be alone. I cannot exist alone." Dale listened to the pleas without expression. "Then leave our space and never come back." Across Coalition territory, similar psychological attacks were breaking down alien resistance. Human forces seemed to know exactly how to hurt each species where it would cause the most damage. The spider-like Arachnari were terrified of fire, so human ships used flame-based weapons even when energy beams would be more efficient. The gaseous ethereals feared being trapped in solid matter, so humans used containment fields that compressed them into tiny spaces. But the most terrifying aspect of the human campaign was how much they seemed to enjoy it. Colonel Janet Wright coordinated with human agents who had been living among alien populations for decades. These sleeper agents had spent years earning their neighbors' trust, learning about their families, their fears, their secrets. Now those agents began their real work on the Zephyrian homeworld. A human named Tom Baker had been working as a cultural researcher for 15 years. His alien colleagues considered him a friend and trusted him with sensitive information about their society. Tom activated his hidden equipment and began broadcasting across the planet. But instead of military threats, he shared personal information about prominent Zephyrian leaders. He revealed their private fears, their family secrets, their hidden shames. "Your Admiral Kethvar is afraid of the dark." Tom's voice echoed across the world. "He sleeps with a light on like a child. Your great warrior emperor cries when he thinks no one is watching." The psychological impact was enormous. The Zephyrians had always seen their leaders as godlike figures. Learning that they were flawed and frightened, beings like anyone else shattered the population's faith in their government. Similar operations across Coalition space turned alien societies against their own leaders. Humans revealed corruption, cowardice, and weakness in the highest levels of alien government. They used each species' own cultural values against them. The campaign reached its peak when Admiral Grace Thompson orchestrated what became known as the Mercy Fleet incident. A human hospital ship approached a crippled Coalition vessel that was leaking atmosphere and losing life support. "This is the human medical vessel Compassion," Grace broadcast to the dying aliens. "We offer medical assistance." The grateful alien crew accepted the help, expecting human doctors and medical supplies. Instead, they received detailed anatomical charts of their own species, showing optimal points for causing maximum pain, psychological pressure points, and biological agents specifically designed to target their biology. "We studied you," the message that came with the chart said. "We learned how you think, how you feel, how you suffer. This is what we could do to you if we chose." The rescued aliens spread word of the incident across Coalition space. The message was clear. Humans understood their enemies better than the aliens understood themselves. As reports of human psychological warfare reached Coalition command centers, panic began to spread. The aliens realized they weren't just fighting a technologically advanced enemy. They were fighting a species that had spent decades learning how to destroy them mentally and emotionally. Emperor Draklon of the Zephyrian Empire called an emergency meeting of all Coalition leaders. The proud rulers who had confidently declared war on humanity now gathered in fear. "They know everything about us," he said to the assembled aliens. "Our fears, our weaknesses, our deepest shames. How is this possible?" Ambassador Veltar of the Nexari spoke through tears. Her people had never experienced individual emotions before the human attacks began. They planned this. For decades, they studied us while pretending to be our friends. General Mortak slammed his fist on the table. "Then we fight them with the same tactics." "With what?" Emperor Draklon demanded. "We know nothing about human psychology. We never studied them because we thought they were primitives. Now they're using our own minds against us." The aliens were learning a terrible lesson. They had started a war with a species that understood them better than they understood themselves. The humans weren't just winning through superior technology or tactics. They were winning because they knew exactly how to make their enemies destroy themselves. The psychological warfare campaign continued for weeks, breaking down alien morale across the coalition. Reports came in of entire alien fleets surrendering, rather than face human psychological attacks. Some species began withdrawing from the war entirely, too terrified to continue fighting. The proud coalition that had confidently threatened humanity with extinction was falling apart, one broken mind at a time. 6 months after the coalition's invasion began, Emperor Draklon of the Zephyrian Empire sat alone in his private chambers, staring at reports that filled him with despair. The greatest military alliance in galactic history was collapsing, and it was all because they had underestimated one species. His aide entered quietly. "Your Majesty, the latest casualty reports." Draklon didn't want to look, but he forced himself to read the numbers. The coalition had lost over 15,000 ships. Entire star systems had fallen to human forces. 3 member species had already withdrawn from the war completely, too terrified to continue fighting. "Prepare a transmission," he said finally, "to all human-controlled space." "Sir, what should the message say?" Draklon closed his eyes. "Unconditional surrender." The message went out across the galaxy within hours. The proud emperor who had once demanded humanity's extinction now broadcast from his throne room, begging for mercy. "Humans of Earth and all your colonies," his voice carried across space. "The Zephyrian Empire formally surrenders to your superior forces. We offer you dominion over any worlds you desire. We pledge never again to threaten your people." Other coalition leaders quickly followed with their own surrender messages. The Corvan Republic, the Nixari Collective, the Arachnari Web States, all the proud civilizations that had thought themselves the galaxy's masters, now competed to see who could surrender fastest. But the human response came from an unexpected source. Jake Miller, the same diplomat who had attended the original peace talks, appeared on screens across coalition space. He stood on the bridge of a massive human warship called Retribution, wearing a simple uniform that somehow looked more intimidating than any alien military dress. 6 months ago, Jake said calmly, "We met on Harmony Point. You offered us a choice between surrender and extinction. Do you remember what we told you?" The aliens watching the broadcast remembered very well. Many had been there when the humans calmly refused their ultimatum. "We told you that you were welcome to try." Jake continued. "You tried. This is the result." Behind him, the bridge windows showed human fleets patrolling through what had been coalition space. The aliens' former territories were now under human control. "You taught us something important," Jake said. "You taught us that the galaxy doesn't want us as equals. You made it clear that our choice was submission or war. So we chose war, and we won." President Karen Walsh took over the broadcast from Earth. She sat behind a desk in the Oval Office, looking tired but determined. "The coalition's surrender is accepted," she announced. "But surrender is not enough. You started this war because you feared human expansion. Now you'll learn what real human expansion looks like." Admiral Grace Thompson appeared next, broadcasting from the bridge of her flagship. Behind her stood the military leaders who had planned humanity's victory from the beginning. "Effective immediately," Grace announced. "Human monitoring stations will be established in all former coalition territories. Any species that shows aggression toward human interests will face immediate and overwhelming retaliation." The terms were harsh, but simple. The coalition's military fleets would be reduced to system defense forces. No alien species could maintain weapons capable of threatening human colonies. All interstellar trade would require human approval. Most importantly, every alien world would host human observers who would report directly to Earth. The galaxy's former rulers were now subjects under human oversight. The broadcast continued with Dr. Marcus, Bell appearing from his research facility. He looked directly into the camera with cold eyes. "Some of you may wonder how this happened," he said. "How a young species defeated the galaxy's greatest civilizations. The answer is simple. We knew this day would come." He activated a holographic display showing human expansion over the past 50 years. Every colony we built, every trade agreement we signed, every cultural exchange we participated in, it was all preparation for this moment. The display showed the truth that chilled every alien watching. Humanity's expansion hadn't been random or aggressive. It had been carefully planned to create the perfect defensive network. "We never wanted this war," Dr. Bell continued. We offered friendship, cooperation, peaceful coexistence. You responded with demands for our extinction, so we gave you what you asked for, a war. The only mistake was assuming you could win it. Colonel Janet Wright took over the broadcast, speaking from a secure facility on Earth. Our agents have been living among your populations for decades. They mapped your societies, learned your weaknesses, prepared for this day. Every human diplomat, trader, and researcher was also a soldier waiting for orders. The aliens listening began to understand the scope of human preparation. Every friendly interaction they'd had with humans had been part of a larger plan. Every human they'd trusted had been studying them as potential enemies. But the most shocking revelation came when Jake Miller returned to the screen for his final message. "There's one more thing you need to understand," he said, his voice carrying across the galaxy. "Humanity never intended to expand beyond our original colonies. We were content with the space we had." He paused, letting that sink in before continuing. "The rapid colonization that frightened you so much was us preparing defensive positions. We knew you would eventually demand our extinction, so we built the infrastructure to not just survive your attack, but to emerge as your superiors." The truth hit the aliens like a physical blow. Humanity had predicted their xenophobic response and spent decades preparing for it. The war the Coalition thought they were starting was actually the conclusion of a conflict that had been building since first contact. "We offered you peace as equals," Jake said. "You chose war instead. Now you'll have peace as our subjects. Remember that this was your choice, not ours." The broadcast ended, leaving the galaxy's former rulers to contemplate their new reality. The species that had once considered themselves apex predators were now living under the authority of the race they had tried to exterminate. On Harmony Point, the same station where the peace talks had failed, a new meeting was taking place. But this time, the aliens sat in chambers designed like prisoner docks while human officials outlined the terms of their survival. Admiral Grace Thompson stood where Admiral Kethvar had once delivered his ultimatum. The former Coalition leaders sat before her, their proud postures replaced by defeated slouching. "You have 47 hours to acknowledge the new reality," Grace said, deliberately echoing the original human response. "Any species that refuses to accept human authority will be classified as a rogue state and dealt with accordingly." No one refused. The aliens who had once demanded humanity's retreat to Earth now competed to show their loyalty to their new human overlords. Emperor Draklan raised a trembling hand. "What do you want from us?" Grace smiled, the same cold smile Jake Miller had worn months earlier. "Exactly what you offered us. Complete submission. The only difference is that we're better at conquest than you were at ultimatums." As the meeting concluded, Dr. Bell transmitted one final message to the defeated aliens. "You wanted to know what made humans so dangerous. It wasn't our technology or our tactics. It was our patience. We spent 50 years preparing for a war we hoped would never come. When you threatened us," he continued, "you weren't facing a young, naive species. You were challenging the most patient predators in the galaxy. We let you think you were the hunters right up until the moment we revealed who the real prey was. The galaxy had learned a lesson it would never forget. Never threaten the human race unless you're prepared to face the consequences." The species that had once feared human expansion now lived under human rule, serving as a permanent reminder of what happened to those who chose war over peace. Humanity had offered friendship and been answered with threats of extinction. In return, they had given their enemies exactly what they deserved, a demonstration of what real extinction looked like when applied by experts.